So welcome to the hidden language of success and how to get yeses. So I'm really excited to kick off today and this incredible masterclass, and I'm really happy to see so many beautiful faces coming in right now. And if you're watching this recording, I'd love to hear from you as well. So hello, beautiful human beings. Okay, and welcome to this incredible hidden language. And I want to say this, I want to prefix this with something. This is, this is not going to be a training. Okay, so if you're disappointed, my apologies. I want this to be kind of a moment in time, and an hour out for you, an hour that could possibly, very likely, change the direction, the course of your life. Now, I know that's a big statement. However, what I truly believe, and not only believe, know, is that if once we take our life, our words, our intention, 1 degree off course from where we were going, guess what happens? Right? You know it. Put in the chat if you know what happens. Do you know what happens? We end up in a whole new destination. Correct? Right? Yeah? So that's what we're going to do. So by the end of tonight, or today, or this morning, or this evening, whenever you're watching this, okay, my intention is that the way that you communicate online, offline, in your sales, and not just sales, in any area of your life where you want more abundance, in love, in your relationships, in fun and joy and happiness, I want to guarantee that at the end of this, that this will have shifted for you. Does that sound good? Does that sound good? That is my intention. So what I want you to do is give this your focus for this next hour. Give it the same energy that I am giving you. Can you do that for me? Give me a yes in the comments and let me know, can you do this for yourself? Yes. I love it. I love it. Okay, so I want to begin with a big statement. Here's the kind of like the bold truth. So do you know why people maybe are not saying yes to you? Do you know why? Here's what it has nothing to do with. It has nothing to do with, most likely, possibly, very unlikely. It's probably very unlikely got to do with your strategy. It's probably very unlikely got to do with your price. And it's probably not even your script. Okay? And it's definitely not your offer. Okay? Do you know what it is? It's your energy. It's your energy beneath your offer. It's the frequency behind your words. Would you agree? Would you agree with this statement? Put it in the chat. And how do we know this? How do we know this to be true? How do we know this to be a fact? How would we know this to be true? And I'm gonna tell you, because I've been a coach now for about 15 years, very successfully, had thousands of clients, and I've also had many coaches myself. And guess what? Every coach is gonna give you a different strategy. Have you seen that? Every coach is gonna say, do this and it'll work. Don't do that, do this and it will work. Yeah? Every coach is going to give you a different strategy. So what does that tell you? It tells you that even if you have a strategy that has made somebody millions, right? It may not work for you. Because the missing ingredient is the energy. Exactly. Align and attract. You've got it. Exactly, Breach. So that tells us that success doesn't just come solely, and it's kind of ironic because I teach all about communication, right? But it doesn't just come from saying the right things, because guess what? Communication isn't made up of just words. Words are only 7% of your communication. Who knows what the biggest part of your communication is? Who's first? Who's first? Move those fingers. Who's first? Good. Breach again. Tough in the class. Good woman. Yeah, exactly. It's body language. Have you been studying my stuff? Yeah, I love it. I love it. Okay. Yeah, very good. Very good. Tough marks. So it comes from your energy. 55% of this is body language, right? And body language doesn't lie. Okay, so it comes from speaking the language that the subconscious already understands. So if you've ever kind of poured all your heart into an offer, you've, a post. I have people that have spent a week procrastinating over a post. For one post, a conversation, and you've had crickets for a response. You've had no response. Have you had that? Who's done that? Who's procrastinated over promoting their offer, putting a post out, and then after days, hours, weeks, days, yeah, me, yeah, weeks, months, you put it out and you're hoping and you still get no result, right? Yeah, I hear ya. Okay, so, or maybe at maximum it was like, I'll think about it. Right? So tonight what I want to do is I want to get right into it. We're going to look at what's really happening under the surface, and how we can shift this. Because when you kind of master this beautiful language, this deeper sort of language, you kind of stop, you're not as focused on getting yeses, you just receive them. More often. Does that sound good? Would that sound like something that you would like? Would you like more of that? Would you like more yeses in your love life, in your abundance, in your wealth, in your money, in your sales, and all of that? Would this sound good? Yeah? So, yes. So most people think that the solution to this is more visibility, better content, better funnels, and all of that is important, but all that visibility without having the frequency and the subconscious resonance is not going to land. It's just noise, right? So people will scroll past you and it's not because they don't like you. And it's not even that they don't think your content is good. It's because their nervous system isn't activated. You have not activated them. So people don't say yes, ultimately. Us human beings, we don't say yes because it makes sense logically. Okay, right? We say yes because it feels good. It feels good. It feels safe. It feels powerful. It feels exciting. Isn't that right? We don't do things that we should do. You've heard me say this before, possibly. We do things that we want to do, that feel good. So if your language, when you're communicating, isn't triggering that, and isn't triggering those feelings in your potential client or whoever it might be, it doesn't matter how good your offer is, you're still not going to get the results if the person is not feeling it. Does this make sense? So I want you to remember, we don't make decisions logically. We make decisions most of the time emotionally. And then we back it up with logic. We want to confirm that we were right. We want to reassure ourselves. We want to reaffirm it. We want to justify it. So we will confirm it with logic, but we buy with emotion. You know this, right? So we're not selling to logical human beings. We're selling most of the time to very primitive, maybe hangry, if you're a bit like me. And do you ever get hungry? Oh, okay. You know, hungry, angry, yeah. Okay. Maybe it's just me. Okay. Tell me it's not just me. Okay. We're selling to people that are emotional. We're selling to people that get anxious. We're selling to people that are irrational. We're selling to people that are emotionally impulsive, right? It's not just you. Thank you. Thank you. Only one person said that? Am I the only other person that gets hangry? Okay. So we're selling to human beings. We're selling to people that have all the feelings. We're selling to people who kind of, you know, dress up and attempt to look professional, but still don't really know what they're doing under the surface. Right? Hangry is my middle name. I get you. So you want people to say yes faster, then stop. Here's the thing. Stop speaking to their brain. Stop. And start speaking to their pain. Got it? Yeah? Stop speaking to their brain. Start speaking to their pain. Okay? To the emotion. And that's very likely why a lot of the time you're perfectly written, too perfect for words, bullet pointed, itemized, you know, presentation isn't converting because the words are right, but the energy isn't. Does this make sense? Is this landing? Tell me this is landing. Okay, the identity underneath the words isn't congruent yet. Yes, yes, landing. Good, good. So what we're doing here we're not just, although I am going to teach you some of this, isn't just about kind of tweaking sentences, and I could give you a billion of those. But it's more about activating your energy. That's what I want to do today. I want to activate your presence. I want to activate your belief system. I want to activate, even more than anything else, your certainty. Your certainty, your self-belief muscle. Okay? And the self-belief muscle in what you offer and what you give and what you deliver. Okay? Because when you have that, or this rather, when you have this full yes for yourself, then the words don't matter half as much and people will feel it. And that's why the subconscious is so powerful. Okay? It's about reading everything, your body language. It's about reading the tone of your voice. It's about reading, and you don't even know you're doing it, but you're doing it all the time. You're doing it all the time to people. You're not even aware of this incredible superpower that you have. You're reading the facial micro expressions that people are making, but you consciously are not maybe yet aware. And this is what I teach you. But you're not consciously aware of what's going on, but you're still reading them subconsciously. So you're reading all of this, and people are reading you way before you even start to speak. So you can say the most perfect stuff, but if your nervous system ultimately is still in doubt, they're going to feel it. Okay, so this is what we've got to start to kind of sit into. The belief that your offer, your product, your service, whatever it is, can help somebody, is beneficial, right? You've got to breathe into that. You've got to let this kind of energy do the talking for you. You have to become the vessel that is ready to receive this. So some of you know my story, and very, very briefly, I went from bankrupt, broke, destitute, with nothing 15 years ago, after being in business for 17 years with 4 different businesses. And I went from that to 4 years later, owning a new home outright that I bought with cash, to having a multi 6-figure business, to having found the love of my life, to having rekindled my long time lost relationship with my father, and to most of all having found myself again and actually loving myself for the first time in my life. Is that good or is that good? Was that good or was that good? You know, was that good? Tell me, what do you think of that? In 4 years. Now, this isn't about me. Okay? It's not actually about the fact that I'm any more special than you. I'm just as, and you are. But it's about the fact that we can all do it. Because if I went from feeling worthless, which I felt, and feeling like I was undeserving of anything, I did not feel deserving. And believe me, I had a business. I had like a successful businesses. And I had over 4 million worth of business. But I still felt worthless. So I was stuck in hustle, hard work. And eventually that catches up. I was stuck in an identity of, I've got to hustle, I've got to work hard. I'm someone who's a survivor, I'm someone who's a grafter, I'm someone who was a doer. And I had confidence. To the difference between confidence and self-worth, I had no self-worth. And that's why I was not the vessel to allow wonderful, happy, joyful, loving balance and abundance in all aspects into my life. So until you become the vessel, and just like the millionaires or the people that win the lotto over and over again, and I think it's some incredible statistic like 75-80% of people it's a really high statistic. I don't quote me on it, I can't remember exactly, but it is a very high statistic, something like 70-80%. You can go Google it. That people that win the money in the lotto lose it again in the first 5 years. Why? Because they had not become the person that was able to hold that sort of money. They did not believe that that's who they were. Their identity was not that they were a millionaire. They had not become the person yet. So we have to first become the person. Now, I went on. Do you want to know how I did this? Do you want to know how I created this? Do you want to know how I created wealth on the outside and wealth on the inside? Do you want to know how I did it? Give me a yes. Yeah? Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. The biggest thing that I did was I changed how I started to speak to myself and how I started to speak to others. And remember, when I talk about speaking, I'm talking about communication in general. I'm not just talking about words. I'm talking about the whole package. I'm talking about communication. And it starts with your intentional communication with yourself. Now, in this masterclass, I am going to focus more on how you can use this for sales, 100%, because I know that's what you're here for. But you've heard it said before, right? Okay. I presume you have, that when you're selling something, sell what the person wants. Do you know how to finish that sentence? And give them, then finish it for me. Sell them what they want and give them, sell them what they want and give them, Lisa Grogan's in the house, good woman, what they need. What they need, yeah. Give them what they need, yeah, exactly. So I'm going to talk to you here and now what I know you want, which is the communication part. How do I speak to my clients, my potential clients? How do I speak to my potential leads to get the sale? Correct? That's what you want, isn't it? But I'm going to call a spade a spade. What you really need, and I don't like using the word need because that repels, never use that, okay? But what you really deep down want is the inner work so that you become the vessel that's able to receive. Most people tend to over and over skip the first step, which is becoming the vessel, until, just like me, they have a crash, everything collapses, they burn out, they can't handle it anymore, and then eventually, after banging their head on the brick wall for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, then they sit up and go, okay, it's time to do this. Okay, so let's begin. The first thing that you want to activate in someone, that is your potential buyer, your potential client, your potential lead, is what? Curiosity. Curiosity. Without curiosity, they don't care. They don't care. And if they don't care, they're not going to buy. So we want to get very specific about how we can activate curiosity. So, and we all do it, and I've done it myself at times, and it's quicker and it's easier, but saying something like DM if you're interested, it's a little bit lazy. What about activating somebody with curiosity and saying something like, I've got one little wild little shift that made a client sign 3 new clients in the last 24 hours. Would you like to know what that is? Drop a DM to find out. Isn't that more curiosity building? Would you say that that is going to activate them more? Right? So curiosity is not really about withholding. It's more about opening up a loop. And in what I teach, I talk a lot about opening loops. So when I lost everything, I went on a big journey of discovery, which led me to all about the subconscious. I studied the subconscious like I eat, drink, sleep, dream, wake, repeat the stuff. This is my passion, my purpose. I learned about how the subconscious mind works, and I didn't learn, actually I'm still learning. I'm constantly learning. When we talk about degrees, I've done 6 degrees of this stuff. I'm constantly, daily, morning, noon and night, I eat this stuff up. And not only have I studied this, I've lived it, I've embodied it, and I've taught it. And I've shared it, and I've watched my clients, my students, my mentorees use it and soar. So I know it works. When we're talking about subconscious communication, some people call it influence. Some people call it persuasion. Some people call it building rapport. Some people call it sales tactics. Some people call it subconscious communication. Some people call it NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. Now, I do happen to be an NLP trainer. And if you're going to be an NLP trainer, and this is who I was taught by, I learned by the original and the best, which was Richard Bandler, the person that created it. So I am one of his trainers. I teach this stuff. So when you teach this, you learn on a whole new level. And I've been teaching this form of communication for the past decade. So I know what I'm talking about, and I know it works. So opening loops is something that's really effective to build curiosity. You open a loop, but you don't quite close it immediately. You leave it open so that inside it you can place a lot of things, like subliminal commands, like more stories, like deeper messages that go deeper down. The human brain is kind of wired to want to close open loops. So if you give too much information up front, you're going to kill the desire. Have you ever had that experience when you do a sales call and you give too much and you over deliver, and in fact the person says, you know what, I think I've actually got all I need. And you're going, shoot, what? You've over delivered. Now when you over deliver, believe me, that comes from a place of you wanting to please. I get that. But it's also coming from a place of you needing to please, because that's coming from the place of feeling a lack and wanting to prove your worth. So be aware of this, that this is the inner work, and this is what I'm talking about, that this is what I mean by when you've got to become the vessel. So instead of giving them everything, giving them the full cake, so to speak, give them a little taste, give them a nibble, give them a little tiny little sliver, a little slice, so that they're, gagging for more. And they say, and then you can, you can say to them, like, do you want the rest? Does this make sense? So instead of kind of saying things like, tell me that this is landing. Is this landing? Is this making sense? So yes. Yes. So instead of saying things such as, I love it, thank you. Instead of saying things such as, here's exactly what you get, and then having a whole list, say something like, this is one shift that helps people, whatever, with ease. I'll share it in a minute with you, but first. And then you've opened a loop. You've opened a loop, and you're creating mystery, you're creating tension, and you're getting them to focus because they're waiting for the thing. Does this make sense? You've opened a loop. Now, when the mind is open and you've opened a loop, the person is really, really listening, because they're subconsciously really wanting to close that loop. So this is what I'm talking about. You've been doing a lot of the things correctly according to the strategy, according to the what we're told to do for social media and all the rest. But not everyone knows how to speak to that subconscious part, the part that really, really wants to actually make the decision to buy. So is this landing? So if your offer doesn't make them feel like if your offer isn't sexy, if your offer isn't making them feel like they are the stepping into the best version of them, they're never going to move. They're never going to take action, even if it's free. Even if it's free, because what's our most valuable asset? Our time. So they have to want the identity that your offer helps them to step into. So again, you're not actually selling the offer. You're selling how they get to feel. You're selling how they get to feel when they become the person that has this thing. You've got to sell them to them in advance. You're selling them the identity that they're stepping into, not the one that they're in right now. So your content, your posts, your pitches, your conversations are not about information, and you don't want them to be logical and about information. You want them to be emotional, and most of all, and here's a major hypnotist secret, we could say, you want to interrupt the trance that they're already in, and you want to install a new one, and you don't need permission to influence someone, because people are all already hypnotized. We're all hypnotized already. We're by our fears. We're hypnotized by everything, by our fears, by our doubts, by the voice in your head that tells you, like, don't buy it, you'll fail again, it's not the right time, right? All of these sentences, these are all trances. You're already hypnotized. People are already hypnotized. We're all in our own states. I always kind of joke and say some more than others. All right, we're all in a state. Okay, so we're always hypnotized in some state or other. So we're just breaking that trance. Your job, if you've got a product or a service that can help somebody, that is good and beneficial for somebody, then your job is to actually hijack that inner trance of theirs and redirect them into a new possibility. Does that make sense? And one of the best ways to do this is what you could call mirror magic. Okay? It's not about convincing. It's about stepping into their nervous system and kind of like stepping around into the back door, as I always like to say. We distract the guards at the gate, the conscious mind, and we step in the back door into the subconscious and we whisper, I see you. Hey, I see you. I know what it's like. You've tried. You've invested even, right? You've doubted yourself for so long, and yet guess what? You're still here. You know what? Guess what? Yeah, you got this, Anne. Exactly. You know what? I know. I've watched you while you sleep. I've watched you when you pray to God. I've watched you when you cry yourself to sleep. I know about the fear that wakes you at 2 o'clock in the morning, wondering will it ever work. Okay? But I also know the fire inside of you that hasn't died yet, right? Because you're still looking for that something that feels right. Am I right or am I right? Yeah? That's connection. That's connection. So the NLP truth, so to speak, okay? Neuro-linguistic programming, neuro, your brain, linguistics, your language, and programming, how we communicate, how we influence ourselves with our communication inwards and outwards. The truth is this, that everyone is already hypnotized. and you know, you've got to hijack that trance and you've got to install a better one. So you've got to change it from it's not possible to this is made for me. Okay? And how do we do that? The subconscious speaks in images, it speaks in sounds, it speaks in feelings, not in logic, right? So instead of saying something like, my client feels more confident, you might paint the picture. You might say, my client walks into rooms with her shoulders back, her jaw unclenched, her her heart open, and people feel her the moment she comes in, even before she speaks. Now you've painted a picture. You've added sight, sound, taste, smell, touch. You've added senses to it. And that means that you've actually downloaded an experience for them into their nervous system. So you're speaking in moments, you're painting scenes. It's not sentences such as, oh, you join my program and you'll have more clarity. And I say this all the time. No one goes to bed at night and prays to God. I've never done it. And said, dear God, I need more clarity. We don't speak in those terms when we're on our own. We say, God, I'm lonely. I want love. Or we say, I'm so unhappy. I just want to feel happy. God, help me. Or we say, I need money. We don't even say, I want abundance. We'll say, so speak in the language that you would speak yourself. Build the picture, allow the scene to be made. Instead of, you can have more clarity with this. If you're a coach, for example, you might say something like, you're going to sip your coffee at 4 minutes past 8 in the morning, and you're going to know exactly what to post, right? Because you will then feel the power inside of you coming out. Now, that's creating a better chemistry. That's creating a better image. That's downloading more into their senses, right? So you want to create a picture. So another thing I want to share with you is this, what we call future pacing. In NLP, in hypnosis, in influence, in persuasion, in sales, by the way, persuasion is not a bad thing. Like the way I always say, manipulation is not a bad thing. Manipulation is the most beautiful thing. I was born to manipulate, and guess what? So were you. You've been doing it since the moment you were born. You've been doing it since the moment you learned how to smile, that beautiful baby smile, and everybody went, oh my God. We're always manipulating. And it's like any weapon or tool, like you put a hammer in someone's hand, you could build a house, or you can hurt somebody with it. You can get a knife and you can butter your bread with it, or somebody else's bread, or you can stab somebody with it. Manipulation comes from the word manipulare, and it means to change something's form. My whole life has been about changing forms, about helping people change their form. Even when it was back to manipulating dough, not the money kind, the pizza dough. When I was 19 and I opened my first restaurant, I was manipulating dough. I love creating. I love creating. That's why I loved creating the little video at the start of this. I love manipulating stuff to give people great feelings. So at the end of the day, manipulation, persuasion is all in your hands. It's up to you how you use it. If you have, and you're a good person, and you have a product or service that is beneficial and useful, and you're going to deliver it, then isn't knowing how to manipulate and put that in front of somebody, isn't that a gift? Okay? So most people lose the sale because they're still thinking in logic. They're not thinking in sensation. When you start to describe how it feels, people begin to live in the experience. Okay? You've got to let the mind feel like it has it. Now, letting the mind feel like it has it does two things. One, imagination. You may have heard this before. The subconscious doesn't know the difference between what's real or imagined. And if you haven't heard this before, the subconscious is 93% of your mind. So which part do you think makes the decisions? Your subconscious, right? So we've established that. We've also established that the subconscious doesn't know the difference between what's real or imagined. We know that because you've had dreams where you felt really good or really bad. You've had dreams where you've had, I want to stay in this dream. Or you've had dreams which were scary and you said, oh, I want to wake up. and you woke up and you went, oh my God, thank God that was a dream, because you came back into consciousness. And your conscious mind knew the 7%, but the subconscious didn't. So we know that the subconscious doesn't know the difference. We know that the subconscious, once you imagine, believes it's real. So what do you want to do? You want to allow somebody to feel it's real. And you do that by using the sentences. You do that by letting them go there and be in it. And once they've been in it, guess what that does? This activates a really powerful thing in psychology, which is called loss bias. Loss bias. We want back the thing that we believed was ours. We want back what we felt was ours. Isn't that right? Much more than if we never had it. Isn't that correct? We don't miss what we didn't have. We miss what we did have. So when we activate loss bias by using imagination, getting the person, bringing the person there, now they want it back. It creates a chain of events. So we, in this is an NLP technique. We could call this future pacing. We could call this stepping into the identity, or helping the person to step into the identity. So we want to allow their brain to practice being in the future version of themselves with this thing that you're selling. Okay? When they mentally rehearse this, they start to believe it. Once they believe it, they start to move forward towards it. Does that make sense? So how do you do that in language? You do that very simply by using words such as, let's just simply imagine. Imagine it's a Thursday morning. Imagination is the key. Using the word imagine is the key, because when I say to you, just simply imagine, you're sitting back with the popcorn, so to speak. You're ready. It's like we've given you permission to dream, to imagine. So there's no defenses up. You're open to it. You're open to just having some fun and imagine. So imagine it's a Thursday morning. You're waking up and the first message you see is a client saying yes. Imagine waking up and knowing that clients are, customers are waiting for you. You make the coffee, you smile because you're at ease now. You're attracting it. How does this feel? Picture it. Imagine, checking your phone. What does it feel like? And to hear the little bing and to see the payment received. Maybe you're out walking the dog and you get a beep, a buzz in your phone, and that's more money coming in. How does this feel? That's future pacing in NLP terms. This is an NLP technique that puts your audience, into the scene of their success or their result. So they start to crave it now. They start to want it immediately. Okay? So, and remember, the subconscious doesn't know the difference. So once they see it, they're going to begin to move towards it. So finally, the last thing I want to do is I want to talk to you about NLP, what we call presuppositions. And an NLP presupposition is exactly what we're saying here. It's about presupposing that it's already happening. And this is probably the most important lesson or principle when it comes to sales. We've got to presuppose that it's happening. Have you ever heard the sentence, we've got to assume the sale? We've got to assume the sale. Who's heard that sentence before? Put it in the comments if you've heard that sentence. Assume the sale. Yes, you've heard it from me, right? Okay, assume the sale. Okay, so we've got to assume the sale, because that means, again, going back to the very beginning of this, you've got to be the vessel. You've got to have your self-worth, your self-belief, your certainty so congruent, so aligned that the person will feel this, and your words need to match that. So basically this is the difference between if and when. It's not an if. It's not an if question. So if you decide to buy my product, it's not that. It's when you choose to buy this. That's a powerful differentiation. You're not asking if. You're guiding them through to when. Sometimes we call this injecting certainty. And we use that in our words. So in your copywriting, in your posts, in your social media, in your marketing, in your advertising, in your pitching, in your calls, are you saying if you're interested, if you want to talk further, or are you saying when you decide, to move to this next stage? When you decide to come in, when you decide to, that's a presupposition. Once you're inside this, okay, you'll start seeing these shifts immediately. Does this make sense? That's certainty. That's a presupposition. It's got to be matched, not just with the words, but with your whole frequency. It's so important. And lastly, I wanted to touch on mind reading. Another major NLP principle, sales principle, subconscious principle. It's you've got to answer their objections. You've got to mind read them. You've got to answer their objections before they even come up, before they even ask it. Because here's the thing, if somebody has questions when they're listening to you, let's say in your pitch or your offer or your conversation, and they have a question, where are they? Where are they when you're talking and they have a thought in their head and they're thinking something? Where are they? Where are they? Are they with you? No, they're somewhere else. They're still back there thinking of that question. Oh, yeah, but I really just want that answered. So exactly, they're in their head, but they're not with you. They're not with you. So you want to make sure that the person's with you. So again, objections generally are not about your offer. They're kind of unspoken emotions. They're not logical. They're more protective. So we want to name them as much as we possibly can before they do. So things like, I need to think about it, really means I don't trust myself enough. Generally, the problem isn't you, it's them, in the sense of it's their self-belief. But frequency matches frequency. So if you go along and you have a frequency of, I don't really know if I can help this person, or I don't really know if my product or service is good enough, they're going to feel that, and that creates doubt in them. And then they feel it too, right? So you want to answer their thoughts in advance, such as like, you might be thinking, oh, I've done this before and it didn't work. You might say something like, oh, you might be wondering, okay, what if I fail again? What if I give up? What if I don't use it? What if I quit? What if it does, all that. So, you want to answer, you want to say those things beforehand. Even fear of success, what if it works? You can answer that in advance, and you become too successful, right? So you want to answer those objections, and you want to reframe them as well. So like, for example, let's say their objection is the price of your product. You might say something like, this isn't really about the money, right? This is more about whether you believe this is going to work for you. Am I right or am I right? Okay. Or let's say it's time. Oh, people say, I don't have the time. Okay. Well, you've already been doing it, kind of like, that's me for the last while. Yeah. Okay. I get it. Okay. So you've already been doing it, for the last 6 months, year, 10 years, a lifetime that way, spending time doing it that way, what's the cost of not doing this? time-wise, right? How much longer is it going to take, right? Or maybe it's the fear of commitment, right? Okay. And we know this, we know this. Fear doesn't go away by thinking. In fact, it activates it. Thinking about it activates fear, right? I see you nodding. Because what happens when you feel fear? What happens? If you're afraid and you're thinking, oh, I'm too scared to invest, what happens? And you say, oh, I have to think about it. What happens? Your brain thinks this thing that you have to think about is something scary. So it's going to put up every single objection that it possibly can to stop you doing it. So thinking about it is, if you want to do something, is the worst thing that you can do, because there's no logic in it. There's absolutely no logic comes in. So when someone says to me, they're thinking about it, I know they're gone. Sometimes they come back because they have to go through the pain again and realize that, okay, before they realize that the fear doesn't go away. The only way the fear goes away is when you move, is when you take action. You go through it. Right? Exactly. Confirmation bias, reptilian brain triggering fight or flight. Exactly. So fear goes away by moving through it. So we want to answer those reservations. Does that make sense? So the fact that you're here on this, you've showed up, you're here, you're watching this, you're looking for the answers. That's not a bad thing. That means that you're expanded. That means that you're in the type of person who wants to grow, that wants to learn. That means readiness, right? So I kind of want to ask you, are you ready? Are you ready to change how you speak to others and yourself? Are you ready to change how you speak to others and yourself? Has this been valuable? Give me a yes in the chat. How valuable has this been? What has been your number one takeaway? Your aha moment? Your insight for this past 50 minutes or so together? What have you taken from this so far? So much value. Love that. Yes. What has been your key takeaway from this so far? Creating curiosity with messaging. 100%. Yes. Has it been valuable for you? Have you loved it? Okay. So yes. Mind your language. 100%. Well, yeah. Focus on it. Study it. Improve the skill of it. Learn more. Expand more. Open yourself up. We've got to open ourselves up to receiving. We've got to open ourselves up to stepping into the more beautiful frequency. And for men and for women, we've got to step into the frequency of feminine energy a lot more, so we're open to receiving, rather than all hustle and masculine energy. Presuppositions. It's not if, it's when. Your language is so valuable. Talking to the subconscious part of the brain rather than the conscious part, 100%. There's absolutely no point. That's why people are not selling, because they continuously talk to the conscious mind and try. And by the way, try is the worst word that you could use unless you want to fail or somebody else to fail. Erase it from your vocabulary unless you want somebody to not do something. But most people are trying to speak intellectually, to sound clever, to make it perfect, to have the perfect presentation, and that just doesn't work. It doesn't land. We are activated by emotion. So, are you ready to get more yeses in your life? Do you want to know what the key thing is to do? Do you want to know one more key golden nugget? Do you want one more golden nugget? Do you want it? Give me a yes. Give me a yes if you want it. I expect all the yeses. Yes. Always. Get yeses. There's the secret. You want to get yeses. And this is a kind of a top level answer rather than all the sub levels. There are sub levels to this. But on a very base, more logical, superficial answer, it is to get yeses. It's to get yeses from the moment you start your presentations, from the moment you start your pitch. Is you want to keep people in a pattern of yeses. You want to open those loops and then you do the stuff inside those loops. And then you want to leave the loop open until they say yes. And maybe even longer if you're a hypnotist like me. Okay, so you want to create those open loops and build that curiosity and get those yeses. And the yeses is about, and I'm attempting to teach you this in a very quick manner because it goes so deep. You want to keep the person safe and you want to be with the person at every single stage along their journey to the yes. So let's say you're doing a presentation, you're saying a sales call, you got to know where that person is the whole way, or if you lose them, you lose them. You've lost them somewhere. You've got to be with them subconsciously and know where they are the whole time and continue that pattern of yeses. And that's kind of a big picture of it. So that is kind of just one wafer thin one. Yeah. So that's the kind of the overarching idea. And obviously I teach you how to go into this much more in depth, so that you get yeses, and you get these yeses with confidence because this comes from within. You get those yeses with your subconscious power. So this is your moment. So would you like to know how to get more of those yeses, right? Do you want to continue getting those yeses for yourself, by the way, as well as for your clients, your leads? Do you want to get more yeses in your life, in your love life, in your relationships, in how you feel about yourself, in your financial situation? Yes, yes, yes. Right. So this is how you can do this. I have something very special. I'm inviting you to the NLP practitioner training in Ireland. A live training with me in Ireland. Yeah?